Hi, Tim Hughes here, CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Holly Marshall. Holly and I are going to talk about 5G. Before we get into that interesting subject, Holly, where can people get hold of you?
The best channel for me is on LinkedIn, and you can get me at Holly Marshall, and there's a few of us, but if you search Holly Marshall Beep Consulting, then I think I'm just the only one.
Right, good. And we're actually sort of neighbours, aren't we?
We are. We're in Teddington.
Yes, we actually don't live very far away. We've got all this technology, but actually we could actually use 2 tins and a piece of string.
We could.
So Holly, 5G, what on earth is it?
Well, it's really exciting, actually. It sounds just like the next 3G.
It does. It just sounds like another number, you know. So
yeah, well, I mean, it is in a sense, but the Gs, they come round about once every 10 years, but this one is classified as being a bit more special than the others, and it's classified as a transformative technology, a bit like electricity or the steam train or the printing press. So because it has the capability to do quite a lot in terms of technical innovation to transform different parts of industry and different parts of society for the better, hopefully. So pretty exciting.
And so what are the key concepts of 5G? What does it mean? You know, give us an idea.
Well, it means sort of probably 3 quite important things, or 4 quite important things, really. One is it can transfer massive amount of data. So no longer should you be sitting on the train watching your favourite Netflix movie with the sort of the daisy wheel of death spinning in front of you. Exactly. It has got the capability for enormous throughput of data. Secondly, the way you send instructions over a network and how quickly they move is to do with latency. So, you know, when you're trying to load a website, and normally the latency is pretty bad because the page doesn't load. Well, 5G should deliver super low latency. That's the expectation, and that's the objective that the operators are working towards. The next thing is security-wise. There was a couple of flaws in 4G which 5G solves. Now, if any of your listeners know much about 5G, they'll be saying, "Oh, but there's other vulnerabilities. There'll be loads more devices, and the data that we collect and we analyze will be sort of higher volume and higher value, and therefore I expect it to attract more security kind of issues and glitches that we need to solve." But basically, the architecture it does solve some security problems. So I think we can argue at the moment it's more secure. And then the 4th thing, really, it will allow us to to connect millions and millions of devices, so that, you know, your cat, your carpet, and your can of Coke in the fridge will all be connected if you want them to be.
So we're moving to like having loads and loads of devices connected to the internet, in effect.
Exactly. So you've probably heard of IoT, or the Internet of Things, and that's the sort of the Internet of Things revolution will be supported by the rollout of 5G.
So we're expected to get, you know, there's going to be a whole revolution around those IoT devices. I mean, I know that you can go and buy a fridge which is kind of connected to the internet, but in terms of we're really early days, aren't we, in terms of that type of technology at the moment?
We're really at early days, and I am proud to consider myself a proper nerd and a proper geek. And I have all that technology. I have, you know, door sensors and cameras everywhere and all the rest of it. None of them really work properly. You know, someone rings my doorbell, and, you know, I'm sort of work from out in my back garden. The connection out there is pretty rubbish. You know, by the time I get there, they're not normally still standing there, and I've missed that parcel delivery. So all the technology is kind of there. You know, we can remotely turn on our heating now. That's not too bad. But anything that needs a bit of data, yeah, like a Tado or a Hive or something like that. So some of the things are very good. Yeah, that's the British Gas one, isn't it? Yeah. So some of them are pretty good, but if they need any sort of proper data, then they're not fantastic. And all those sort of things should be made much better from 5G.
So how is 5G going to be deployed? I mean, is it, you know, with 4G, we've got these transmitters, and they've hidden them in churches and stuff like that. So what is the situation with 5G?
Yeah, so there's a few stages, and although your phone, if you've got a 5G enabled phone and you've got a 5G data package from your operator, so from O2 or Vodafone or EE or BT, I think that's most of them, three. That's not really, that's like the first stage of 5G. And although it says 5G, there's a few different components in the architecture which need to work together to deliver the speeds that 5G really promises. And at the moment, we've just got like the radio layer. So some of the sort of the cell sites, if you like, have been upgraded to use sort of 5G technologies, which are really just a collection of different access technologies, basically. But there's other bits that we need in 5G, which will hopefully deliver the speeds, which is sort of 10 to 100 times faster than 4G, so quite considerably faster, we hope. So that's things like the core network, which is a bit that does a lot of the processing. It's things like pushing processing out to the edge of the network, so it's closer to your phone, and that will help with the latency, or certainly the latency issues that we've seen in previous versions of mobile technologies. And we will have much or many more smaller cells on things like lampposts and street furniture, because the type of frequencies that 5G uses, they're a bit like transferring from like an A road to a motorway, so a big sort of fat pipe for data to go down, but it doesn't go very far. So we're going to need these smaller sort of cell sites to help sort of carry that data from
And is that big? I mean, is
that
something really big, or is that something really small, or?
It's like the size of a shoebox, and we're hoping they'll get smaller. So we're hoping they'll be quite discreet. But that we're not even really, I think some trials are going on with that, but we're definitely not seeing any of the big operators really roll them out in anger in urban centres yet. So I think we'll see some of the core network going in sort of within the next year, 18 months, very much hoping to. But as I say, at the moment, it's really just the radio layer. So it's a process and it's a journey. And we won't be delivering those sort of 10 to 100 times faster speeds for just a little while yet.
Because I've noticed that on my phone, I can get 5G, and you walk a couple of paces and it's gone.
Yeah, and it's because the coverage is still a bit patchy. So I'm guessing you're on EE. I'm guessing.
Oh, Vodafone.
Your Vodafone. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. So there's no 5G coverage in my garden. So you must be near some Vodafone coverage somewhere. So it's not everywhere yet, but it's being rolled out. So London, I think, isn't doing too badly. I think the West Midlands is doing very well because they've got a test bed there, which is sort of focusing on rolling out 5G really quickly and trying to understand what we're going to do with it, which will make it exciting and sort of transformational. So I think the West Midlands is doing quite well for 5G rollout.
So what are we going to see? What changes are we going to see in industries, and what impact is this going to make?
Well, so I think first let's talk about some of the sort of like the horizontal capabilities that we expect to come along with 5G. So that's things like extended reality. So that's sort of a bit of an umbrella term for augmented reality or virtual reality, and those sort of things which sort of mix real life and a digital overlay. So if you've got kind of school age kids, you might be aware of Pokemon Go, or there's a great AR app called Leo, which was where you can sort of, it uses your camera, so you're looking at your real surroundings, but it overlays something on top of there to sort of enhance it. So that could be data about something that you're looking at, or it could be for entertainment. There's really good examples of sort of football stadiums in the States with sort of big purple dragons flying across the top, or it could be used by companies to sort of bring their brands to life in a different way. So sort of if you were looking at a stadium and maybe a brand is sponsoring, like O2 do at the Twickenham, for example, or I can't think of any of the football stadiums, but you could overlay all your brand on all the chairs there, for example. So it could bring brands to life in different ways. And that sort of technology could be really interesting for the creative sector. So I'm kind of partly proud and partly disappointed to say that I quite like Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaway.
Okay.
And a few episodes ago, they did something with Tom Jones and Tom and Jerry, where they sort of mixed digital technology with a real life performance.
Right.
And that sort of thing will like be on steroids with 5G, because you'll be able to broadcast that sort of exciting mix of things. And it's a bit like we just need the creative types to use their imaginations to do something really interesting to augment reality, to make reality.
So we're able to stream stuff at the moment, aren't we? We're able to stream TV into our homes. We're able to stream, I do a restream every Friday where we're basically taking a video conversation and pushing that out. But I'm guessing that with 5G, the augmented reality, the AR and the VR is kind of the next step, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. And if I just use like Zoom calls as an example, I mean, there's not many days where a Zoom call doesn't drop, or where people don't look like they're kind of really stilted in their movements, or the camera disappears or something. So or the background's rubbish. So 5G should make that a lot better, we're hoping. Another of the sort of the horizontal capabilities that 5G will enable is something called haptic technology. So that's where you can put on something that looks a bit like a wetsuit, or like a pair of gloves that look a bit like neoprene wetsuit gloves, but they've got hundreds of sensors in.
Oh, right. And you so can, like on a film when they do the green screen stuff and the Matrix.
I mean, further than that. So if I wanted to high five you and I was wearing a haptic glove with loads of sensors, and so were you, I could feel your hand giving me a high five, and you could feel my hand giving me a high five. So there was an amazing case study or use case brought to life recently of that haptic technology, which was where I think it was West Midlands 5G in conjunction with EE set up an ambulance. And the scene was that there was a pregnant woman or somebody who needed some kind of an X-ray or stenographer. Well, stenographers take about 7 years to train, and they're in sort of high demand, and they're not in every ambulance. So normally you would have to take that pregnant woman who'd fallen over, or the person that needed a scan to the hospital for them to queue to, have ultrasound or something like that. But using haptic technology, the stenographer was able to communicate hand movements and effectively move the probe that the paramedic was holding. So it could be really clever. It could be really clever, and it could really benefit healthcare, amongst other things, I think.
So I mean, it sounds like it's really about people's imagination and coming up with ideas, and which is really exciting, really, isn't it?
It is. It's hugely exciting, and I think we haven't really discovered the sort of the thing. When 4G came along, it was all about streaming Netflix, and that was sort of like the kind of the. And
we kind of because with 4G we went from having the app, the where you could download music, to streaming music, wasn't it? There was that jump to Spotify and things like that. And I think the app store, we're now, with COVID, if you want to, you can't go out and like just walk up to a pub and get a table. You have had to have booked on an app, and that's where the apps have really come out.
Yeah, absolutely right. And things like Glastonbury and concerts at the O2, things like that. I mean, hopefully we're going to come out to some sort of normality from this pandemic, but it would have been great to have had 5G kind of a couple of years ago being prevalent, with all the remote apps being supported. And I think we'll see more apps doing different things and more exciting things than we've seen on 4G. And of course, the main use case, which people talk about in the context of 5G, is around business and around things like a really good use case was with Worcester Bosch as a part of the Worcestershire 5G testbed, where they they put in kind of hundreds of sensors in their factory to try and do preventative maintenance, which obviously is much cheaper to to rectify before a leak or a change in humidity affects loads of different equipment. So they put in hundreds of sort of sensors and a couple of cameras, and they think that sort of productivity gains in business are around 1% are possible as a result of 5G, which is really exciting. The other example is sort of an older, really experienced engineer working with sort of 5 junior engineers that they send out on the customer site to fix a piece of equipment, and using virtual reality, they can kind of see what the junior engineer can see, and the various other technologies. Perhaps it will bring up data about the machine they're working on, and that they can communicate really nicely so that the junior engineer kind of upskills himself really quickly, and its maintenance, it becomes lower cost effectively.
So it wouldn't be a 5G discussion without a conversation about the health elements.
Yeah.
So do you want to say something about that?
Yeah. So I think if I think about kind of where those questions have come from, if we just sort of disregard the coronavirus kind of fake news, conspiracy news, that kind of thing, so I think that's been kind of talked about enough.
And I think we've kind of put that one to bed. I mean, we've had coronavirus around such a long time. There's a number of things which were kind of associated with it where, you know, it's just not the case.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with 5G, but 5G does use some higher frequencies, which are a tiny bit closer to the sort of higher frequencies that we don't really like gamma rays and X-rays and those kind of things. But I think, and I am not an expert, I think that's really important to say, but I do go to the sort of sources of information which I think are the most trustworthy. I keep myself up to date. So I look at websites like the World Health Organization, Ofcom, who are the sort of telecoms regulator, Public Health England, for what they want to say about 5G. And they seem to classify 5G about the same level of risk as talcum powder and pickled vegetables. Now, I'm not a big fan of talc, but I do like the odd pickled vegetable. And so I think the important thing is also to recognise, though, I mean, 5G isn't everywhere yet. So I think anybody sensible, and certainly if you're a bit sort of sciencey, let's keep an eye on that. I know there's research continuing, but at the moment, I think the people that I think are the most trustworthy, sort of UK 5G, those kind of organisations, WHO, they believe that the risk is the same as 4G, 3G, and 2G right now. But I think we ought to carry on looking at the research.
Okay. And I think, you know, with all of us, we need to keep monitoring it. We can't just, we're in a society now where we don't just say, yeah, okay, right, fine, let's move on. We do need to question and we do need to challenge. And we live in a society that allows us to do that. So
absolutely right. So yeah, I think the bottom line is we're not going to know much more until 5G's been out for a while, but let's be sensible and, you know, keep our eyes open.
So what are the tests and trials? And you know, I've got 5G on my phone, but like it's all a bit kind of like, so what really, you know? So what's going to happen?
So I think there's a program which is really interesting actually, which was funded by the DCMS, who's that, you know, part of government responsible for mobile, and they ran a test beds and trials program which funded different kind of little studies to see what's possible, to try and get that imagination of our different sort of industry professionals really going. And there's some really exciting projects going on there. We've talked about West Midlands 5G, who are like an urban 5G accelerator program. So they're doing some really exciting things. They did the connected ambulance thing, and they're doing something around capsule endoscopy, which is where you swallow a little camera instead of having a tube.
Right.
Perhaps, you know, and Worcestershire 5G was one of those funded programs. There's also a sort of another wave coming out, which is they're doing something really exciting with the Eden project down in Cornwall, where they're doing some sort of 360-degree filming. They're also doing something a number of other creative projects. I think O2 have got a 5G festival coming up, but that's a really good place to start looking because they funded some really exciting things. I think there's an autonomous vehicle one in there where we're starting to see vehicles communicating with smart transport infrastructure to try and understand, traffic black spots and air quality and things like that. So the DCMS test beds and trials program is a really good idea to go and kind of look at them to get inspired about what 5G might be able to do.
And that's something that the people watching this, really the boundaries are people's own creativity, and they kind of need to go out and investigate 5G and look for themselves and maybe come up with some suggestions.
Absolutely right. And there's a couple of places which anybody interested, because I think product designers and CEOs and sort of change and strategy people and salespeople need to be starting to think about 5G, because if we don't, other countries who are further ahead, they will transform their businesses using 5G and we won't, and they'll kind of come and steal our lunch if we're not careful. So there's loads of information about 5G online, so try and upskill yourself if you can. But there's also 5G accelerators. There's two that are coming to my mind at the moment. One is by West Midlands 5G, and it's called Spring, but instead of an S, it's got a 5 at the front. And Coventry University about to open one called U Explore. So that both of those are places where big brands can set challenges for small to medium-sized enterprises to help try and solve. And they've got all the technical resource. They've got sort of standalone cores, which is like a private network, which can be 5G end to end with all those different elements that we talked at the beginning, the core, the radio, and a bit of sort of edge processing. So there's 5G standalone cores in these places, and they can support small to medium-sized enterprises in sort of experimenting with 5G technology and trying to understand how it can transform them. And they also run sort of 2-day workshops, so you can really get under the skin of 5G and how it might be able to benefit your business.
Right. Holly, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about 5G. I know before I did this, I love meeting people where I don't know the subject, because I have to go and read up on it. I actually did electrical electronic engineering at university, at Coventry University, but it was X25 1984 in my day. So it was a few years ago, but it's always interesting to keep up and hear about the new technologies. So thank you so much. It kind of feels like where drones were about 5 years ago. Drones were the thing. I remember telling somebody 5 years ago, you need to get a drone and learn how to fly it because it's the job of the future. And it kind of feels that 5G is you need to go up and read up about it, and because in 5 years time, people are going to be desperate for expertise in it.
I very much hope so, and I think skills is an area where we may well struggle. So yeah, that would be my kind of parting tip. Really, is upskill yourself, because I think people that really understand about 5G technology and can translate it into a business context, I think they're kind of thin on the ground, really. And if you can upskill yourself, I think all sorts of things will be possible.
So Holly, remind people where they can get hold of you.
Fantastic. So LinkedIn is your best bet, and just search for Holly Marshall at Beep Consulting. And I think I'm the only one.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. Holly, thank you so much for today.
Well, you're
and
very
I might
welcome,
bump into you in Teddington High Street sometime.
Fantastic. I hope so. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks. Bye.
Have a nice day.